What we're going to be doing is 6.6 to 6.8, and we're going to be going over our review sheet answers. So let's look at the first one. Let's read the instructions together. Go ahead. Evaluate the expression, justify each step that you take. How many of you would say yesterday on this you got everything right when you did it? Okay, how many of you would say that you missed something on it? All right, let's go ahead and go through the answers of what it is that you might have missed. Who can tell me what the first thing you think that I need to do on this would be? Jakari, what do you think?
You can switch around the 3/5 and the 1/2, so 1/2 minus 1/2 minus 2/5. Now be the commutative property of addition.
You are correct, okay? Commutative property of addition, because commutative property tells us that I can switch around the order and it will not change the answer, okay? How many of you would say that you got that first step correct? Great job, okay? You switched around the order. Now, does anyone see anything up there that I can cancel out? Mason, what can I cancel out? Okay, 1/2 minus 1/2. What does 1/2 minus 1/2 equal?
0.
0. Great job. Okay, so 0, and what am I still left with, Mason? -3/5. Good job. Okay, so if you look up there, 1/2 minus 1/2 cancels out. It equals a 0. Mason, which property tells me that a number and its opposite will always equal 0? The inverse property. Remember that key word inverse means opposite. So right there, we know 1/2 minus 1/2 equals 0. Excellent job, Mason. Help me out, Tati. What is my answer going to be? Excellent. -3/5. Which one of my properties tells me that I can take 0 and minus any number and it's still going to equal itself? Identity property. If you remember, I talked about this before. The inverse property has a best friend. And every time the identity property will follow the inverse property, because that states that you can add 0 to anything and it will not change who the number is. It will not change its identity. Any questions on number 1 and how to do that? How many of you would say you got that one correct? Okay, excellent job. Here we go on to number 2. Use the distributive property to write an equivalent expression and solve. The main thing here is distributive property. If you remember, the distributive property tells me I have to distribute whatever is on the outside to everything that is on the inside of my parentheses. So is there anyone who thinks that they can tell me what an equivalent expression to this would be? What do you think?
5 times 7 minus 5 times 2.
Okay, 5 times 7. Excellent job, because you took this right here. 5 times 7. You kept your minus sign that you have there, and then you did this times this. That is correct. That is how you distribute it, and you write an equivalent expression. Great job. Now, it tells me to solve it. You can solve it either by doing 5 times 7 minus 5 times 2 or by doing 5 times 7 minus 2. So let's do this right here. 5 times 7 is what, guys? 35. Keep your minus sign. What's 5 times 2? 10. So what is 35 minus 10? 25. That is how you solve it. That's your answer. Let's go on to the next problem. Number 3 says evaluate the expression. If you remember, we talked about how the inverse property helped us out with this. A number and its opposite always equals what? 0. Whenever you're adding, a number and its opposite always equals 0. So the first number I have is what? 5, 6. What's the opposite of 5, 6? Okay, so you're just going to cross it out. 5, 6. And make sure you cross out the negative with it too. -5, 6. What's the next number you have there? 15. What's the opposite of 15? Okay, 15 and -15. Next up, what's the number?
14.
Not just 14. Remember, every number has a sign, and where's the sign at? Directly in front of the number, okay? So we've got -14. What's the opposite of -14? +14. Cross them out. -14, +14. What's the next number you see there? 6. The opposite is? Do you see a -6 up there? Okay, so cross them both out. Next number? Negative 2. What's the opposite of negative 2? Positive 2. Do you see that up there? No. So I am left with negative 2 and negative 2. So even if you wanted to rewrite it, negative 2 minus 2. Remember, same sign, add and keep, different sign, subtract and take. Is that the same sign or a different sign? Same sign, add the numbers together and keep the sign. What is it? Negative 4 is correct. Any questions? All right, next one. Number 4, show that the number is rational by writing it in A over B form. I do not have mine right now in A over B form. What kind of an answer do I have there? A mixed number. I don't want a mixed number anymore though. I want it to be A over B form. Who can help me out with this one? Okay, what do?
You turn it into.
Okay, turn it into an improper fraction.
So 1 times 2 goes 2. So you add 1.
Okay,
3 over 2.
3 over 2. And where do I put my negative sign?
2.
You want to put it on the 2? Okay, so her answer is 3 over negative 2. Excellent. What is the other answer you could have given to me? Negative 3 over 2. I don't care which one you give it to me. You don't have to give me both, just give me one answer. Questions? Okay, here we go on to the next one. Number 5, fill in the blank. How many of you would say you got more than half of these correct? Okay, so how many of you would say this was a tough section for you? I want to help you to understand how this doesn't have to be a tough section. First up, give the additive identity of 16. Am I working right now with adding or multiplying? Adding, the additive identity. This word right here, additive, gives us that clue. Now, the next one is identity. What's the clue word for identity? Mirror. Make sure you've memorized those clue words, okay? So, if number 16 looks into a mirror, who's it going to see? 16. He's going to see itself. So, what number, use the keyword add, what number can I add to 16 that it will still see itself?
0.
A 0. So your answer is 0. Every single time, if I ask you what's the additive identity of a number, it will always be 0. So if I said give the additive identity of 20, what's the additive identity of 20? 0. What's the additive identity of 30? 0. What's the additive identity of 1 million? 0. The only time that you can have additive identity, the answer will always be 0. Number 6, give the additive inverse of 7. Keyword additive, so you're thinking adding. Other keyword inverse. What's the keyword for inverse? Opposite. So if I am adding numbers together, what is the opposite of 7? Negative 7. So your answer is negative 7. Number 7. Give the multiplicative identity of negative 40. Look at 2 key words. Multiplicative. What's that mean? Multiply. Okay, so I'm dealing with multiplication. And the identity. What's the key word for identity? Mirror. If negative 40 looks into a mirror, he wants to see himself. He wants to see negative 40. So what number do I multiply by so that negative 40 can still see itself?
1.
The number 1. Every single time, the answer to a multiplicative identity will be 1, because you can only multiply a number by the number 1 and still get itself, still see a mirror of that number. Last one on this slide. Give the multiplicative inverse of 9. Multiplicative, what's that mean? Multiply. Okay, what's the inverse? Keyword? Opposite. How many of you would say for your answer you had put a negative 9? Okay, if you put a negative 9, that would have been the additive inverse. If you add, the opposite of 9 would be negative 9. But I'm not adding, I'm multiplying. So think about, if I multiply a 9, what is the opposite of 9? 1/9. Think about it as 9 over 1. The opposite, or the reciprocal, is 1/9. So your correct answer should have been 1/9. Any questions on finding those fill in the blanks? Okay, next up. Plot the point and describe its location. So the first thing that I want to do before we do anything else is to figure out what the locations of these different things are. But in order to be able to do that, you can see I did write here 2, 4, 6, 8. If it helps you out, go ahead and write in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, -1, -2. Put those numbers in there if that helps you. If it doesn't help you and you don't have to have it, you are not required to have those numbers there, but that just might help, okay? So let's go ahead and label the quadrants before we do anything else. Quadrant 1, which square is it going to be in?
The right top.
The right and the top, okay? So go ahead and put a number 1 there just to help you out. Number 2, do I go left or down? Left, okay, that's number 2. Now remember, don't do these as regular numbers, but put them as Roman numerals. Should I go diagonal or down for number 3?
Down.
Go straight down. And then who remembers how to do a 4 in Roman numerals? IV, great job. Okay, so now my instructions say, plot the point and describe its location. Who would like to come up and show me where you think point A is? Sherelle, come on up. Now let's remember, for X, do I go left and right or up and down? Left to right. So she went over -7 and then she went up 1. That is correct. Now she's going to point right next to it an A. And tell me the location, Sherelle. Quadrant 2 is correct. Remember, use your Roman numerals, quadrant 2. Tell me, guys, is he going to do X and Y first, or X first, or Y first? X first. Okay, so he went over 4. Now he's going to go up or down 0. So show me exactly where you're going to be. Okay, he did not move off. Plot the point. Some people just leave a dot there. Don't just leave a dot. Tell me that it's point B. And then where is that at? The x-axis. Excellent job. Remember, if it is not inside of a quadrant, if it lands on the x-axis or the y-axis, please actually tell me that is the location of it. Any questions on how to do number 9 or number 10? Okay, we're closing to the end. Number 11. Give the ordered pair that represents the point. So you can once again put in the 1, 3, 5, 7 if that helps you out. If you don't feel like you need it, you do not have to put it. It's up to you. But is there anyone who would like to tell me where this ordered pair, or what the ordered pair is? Mason, what do you think?
3, -2.
Okay, so you did left to right first. He went over 3, so it is a 3, and then he went down to -2. Who got that correct on your review sheet? Who has a question for me about that? What's your question? Okay, any questions for me? Yes, sir. If you feel confused about the quadrants, just remember negatives go down and negatives go to the left, okay? Let's go on to the next one, number 12. For this, I want to help you to be able to break down the questions so that you can easily find the correct answers, because these answers or these questions will be on your test tomorrow, okay? Which of the following is an example of the associative property of multiplication? Associative, what's the key word there? Grouping, okay? So I want you to look right here. This is a group because it has numbers inside the parentheses. This is a group because it has numbers inside the parentheses. This is a group because it has numbers inside of the parentheses. So every single one of these has to do with the associative property. Now the key word is multiplication. Does it have to do with multiplication? So let's go ahead and read these signs here on problem A. Read me what it says. Multiply, multiply, add. Read me these. Multiply, multiply, multiply. Now go to problem C. Plus, multiply, multiply. Which one is the only one that has multiply every single time? B. So your correct answer for the associative property of multiplication can only be B, because this one had a plus sign and this one had a plus sign. So look very carefully for which one only has multiplication, since all of them had to do with the associative property. On to the next one. Which of the following is an example of the inverse property of multiplication? The first one, the key word here, inverse. What does inverse mean? opposite. The other keyword is multiplication. So let's just kind of figure out right here. Does problem A have to do with multiplication?
Yes.
Yes, it does. Does problem B have to do with multiplication? Yes, it does. Does problem C have to do with multiplication? So we know it's not going to be problem C. I can get rid of that. Now, I've got to figure out between A or B.
B.
Inverse property. What is the key word for inverse?
Oh.
Opposite, okay? 6 times 1 equals 6, or 1/5 times 5 equals 1. Does this one right here, 6 times 1 equals 6, have to do with opposites? No, that has to do with identity. Anything multiplied by a 1 doesn't change its identity. So what does our answer have to be? Problem B, okay? Because 1/5, if you think about it, you have 1/5. The opposite of 1/5, you flip it, 5/1. And when you do that right there, you can see, okay, this becomes a 1, that becomes a 1, and your answer is 1. So the only correct answer is problem B. Any questions? Next one, read it to me, guys. Number 14.
Which of the following example of the additive property?
Everyone read it together. Which of the following is an example of the identity property of addition? Okay, identity. What does identity mean?
Mirror.
Mirror, okay? Addition, what does addition mean? Add. Let's go ahead and get rid of one of these real quick. Which one of those, A, B, or C, has nothing to do with adding? B. Get rid of it, okay? Don't let yourself get confused. Addition is not going to be in this, or addition is in this, not multiplication, okay? So now, identity. Which one of these, raise your hand if you think it's A, has to do with identity. Raise your hand if you think it's C that has to do with identity. Think about it. If the number 3 looks into a mirror, who is it going to see?
3.
The number 3. Is this a number 3? No. Okay, let's try C. If the number 5 looks in a mirror, who is he going to see? A 5, okay? Remember, the identity property tells me that I can add 0 to any number and it will not change the identity, or it will not change who the number is. So the correct answer is C. 5 plus 0 equals 5. Last one today on our review sheet, and you are going to want to know these for your test, what all the key words are. So right here, what is the key word for identity, class?
Mirror.
Mirror is correct. Okay? So I want you to know tomorrow you are going to have your, you're going to have your test, okay? So, sorry. I want you to make sure that you study hard for your test tomorrow, okay? You will have your quiz corrections as your homework tonight, but I really, really, really want you guys to do well on your test tomorrow. So I'm begging you, study this review sheet, study your review notes, and then you should do great on 6.6 to 6.8 test.